She had exactly 11 minutes between her husband leaving for the airport and his driver knocking on the apartment door. And in those 11 minutes, Mrs. Anaya Kapoor managed to destroy a billionaire's marriage, his ego, and eventually, his life. By the time Vikram Kapoor realized his flawless, high-society wife had been sleeping with the man who opened his car door every morning, Mumbai's most enviable power couple was already on a one-way path to murder. If stories about jealousy that explodes behind luxury doors, about perfect Instagram marriages hiding affairs with the household staff, and about how one secret can turn a husband into a killer fascinate you, make sure to subscribe and join the channel for more dark, complex true crime cases every week. But let's go back to where it all began. On paper, Anaya Kapoor's life looked like the kind of story Indian lifestyle magazines sell every Sunday. At 32, she lived on the 39th floor of a glass and steel tower in Worli Sea Face, with a view of the Arabian Sea that most of Mumbai only ever saw on postcards. Her husband, Vikram, was a self-made tech entrepreneur whose face appeared on business covers beside words like visionary and disruptor. The photos always showed them together, his sharp jawline and tailored suits, her soft smile and flawless saris, a perfect yin-yang of masculine success and feminine grace. They were tagged at charity galas, rooftop parties, destination weddings in Udaipur, a curated highlight reel of a marriage that, to outsiders, seemed untouchable. Inside the penthouse, though, reality was held together with the thin, tense thread of control. Vikram believed love was a transaction. He would give Anaya security, status, and the sort of lifestyle her middle-class parents could never have imagined, and in return she would be loyal, grateful, and perfectly his. Loyalty, in his mind, meant more than fidelity. It meant total emotional dependence, no secrets, no late-night phone calls he didn't approve of, no friendships he couldn't track. At first, Anaya mistook that surveillance for passion. He wanted to know where she was, what she ate, who she met, what time she fell asleep. He installed security cameras in the hallway for her safety, insisted on having her Uber logs emailed to his assistant, and added his thumbprint to her phone in case of emergency. By their 3rd anniversary, she realized there was no emergency, only his need to own every inch of her life. The only time Anaya felt truly unobserved was in the back seat of Vikram's black Mercedes. Mumbai's chaos blurred outside, the honking rickshaws in Dadar, the slow-clogged traffic near Mahim Causeway, the monsoon-slicked roads of Bandra Kurla, while the car became a soundproof bubble of silence between one gilded obligation and the next. Sitting in the front was the man who drove that silence, Rohan Desai, 28, lean, dark-eyed, with a posture that tried to be invisible and a gaze that never quite succeeded. He had grown up in a cramped chawl in Lower Parel, the son of a mill worker and a seamstress, and he treated that Mercedes like a temple he had been allowed to serve in. Vikram barely registered him beyond instructions and scoldings. Don't brake like that, you're late by 3 minutes, learn to anticipate traffic, but Anaya noticed the small things. She noticed how he kept a spare umbrella in the car for her, how he adjusted the AC vents before she stepped in, how he lowered the music when she looked tired, how his eyes flickered to the rearview mirror when Vikram raised his voice on a phone call and she flinched. The first boundary snapped on a Tuesday in August, when Mumbai skies opened and the city turned into a maze of stalled cars and knee-deep water. Vikram was stranded at a meeting in BKC, barking orders over the phone. Stay in the car. Don't step out. I'll call when I'm done. 2 hours passed. The rain drummed on the roof, wipers squeaked back and forth in a useless rhythm, and traffic didn't move an inch. The AC gave up. Condensation clouded the windows. Anaya's chest felt tight, not from the humidity but from the memories the trapped feeling triggered. Her childhood home in Thane during monsoon power cuts, her father humming old songs by candlelight, her mother handing her hot chai in steel glasses, the simple chaos of a life that didn't smell of imported leather and cologne. Rohan said quietly from the front, his voice cutting through the claustrophobic silence. There's a small tea stall just ahead, under that flyover. The car won't move for at least an hour. Do you want to step out for 5 minutes? Vikram would have said no for her. Anaya, for the first time in a long while, said yes for herself. They left the locked Mercedes on the flooded street and waded toward the faint glow of a yellow bulb under the flyover. The tea stall was nothing, a sheet of blue tarpaulin, a rusted stove, dented aluminium kettles, But to Anaya, standing barefoot on wet concrete with rain dripping from her hair, it felt more real than any champagne-soaked ballroom she'd ever been in. Rohan held the umbrella over her, getting soaked on one side so she wouldn't. When the tea seller recognized him and grinned, "Oh Rohan, big boss wali madam ko likaya high age." She realized with a jolt that Rohan had a whole life that existed outside her husband's gaze. He had favorite tea stalls, people who knew his name, jokes that didn't revolve around Vikram Kapoor. She wasn't the only one living two different lives. That shared, stolen cup of oversweet cutting chai became a crack in the glass. After that day, their car rides changed in ways that would have seemed microscopic to anyone watching, but to Anaya they felt seismic. She started asking him questions that went beyond how long to Bandra, and can you lower the AC? She learned he had a younger sister studying nursing in Pune, that he sent most of his salary home, that he used YouTube videos to teach himself English between rides. She caught him once, pronunciation app open on his cheap Android phone, repeating the word entrepreneur because he heard Vikram say it all the time and hated mispronouncing it. The first time she laughed, really laughed, in months was when he got it horribly wrong and then laughed at himself, eyes crinkling in the rearview mirror. That laugh, bouncing off leather seats, sounded to her like an act of betrayal. The affair didn't start with a kiss. It started with a boundary Vikram would have considered far worse, loyalty shifting. When Rohan began to notice the exact way her hand tightened around her phone whenever Vikram called. When he deliberately took slightly longer routes home so she could have 10 extra minutes of peace. When he saw the faint bruise on her wrist one evening, a perfect thumbprint shape, yellowing at the edges, and pretended, for her sake, that he hadn't. "Busy day, he asked instead, voice gentler than usual. She met his eyes in the mirror, and something in her finally cracked. The first time she touched him, it was by accident. A sharp turn near Haji Ali made her lose balance as she reached for her bag, and her hand landed on his shoulder from the back seat. It should have been nothing, an instant, a reflex. But his body tensed under her fingers, just for a fraction of a second, and when he glanced at her in the mirror, there was a flicker there she had never seen aimed at her husband. Raw, unfiltered desire tangled with something dangerously close to reverence. She pulled her hand back as if burned, but that look burrowed into her, followed her into her bathroom mirror, into her dreams. For weeks, she tried to drown it under Pilates classes, charity events, brunches with women who analyzed their husbands' IPOs like weather reports. It didn't drown. The night line was finally crossed. There were no candles, no soft music, no movie-perfect seduction. There was only a broken lift, a generator failure, and the suffocating blackness of a high-rise stairwell when the power went out. Vikram was in Dubai for a conference. Anaya had been at a late meeting with an interior designer in low apparel, arguing over marble samples for their new holiday home, when the building plunged into darkness. Rohan appeared beside her in the lobby, phone flashlight in hand. The car park is in the basement. We'll have to take the stairs down." The emergency lights flickered once and died, leaving only the thin cone of his phone's light cutting through dust. The stairwell smelled of damp concrete and old cigarettes. As they descended, her heel slipped on a wet patch. She would have fallen if his hand hadn't shot out, gripping her waist hard enough to stabilize her. For a heartbeat, they were pressed together in the dark, her breath against his neck, his palm spread against the silk of her sari, the air between them buzzing with a tension that had been building for months. She felt the tremor in his hand before he yanked it back, as if remembering the line printed in his job contract and every invisible one society had ever drawn. "Sorry, he whispered. "I shouldn't have." "Don't call me she said, her voice low, unfamiliar to her own ears. "Not right now." Later that night, in the shadowed safety of the basement parking, the Mercedes became something it had never been before, not a cage, but a hiding place. The windows fogged for reasons that had nothing to do with weather. The leather seats creaked under movements that had nothing to do with potholes. Anaya, who had spent years being told that her body, her time, her choices were line items in a balance sheet of gratitude, rediscovered them in the hands of a man who had never been allowed to want someone like her. Rohan kissed her like every consequence would land only on his back, and for once, she let someone else carry the weight. If the story had ended there, with secret nights in a parked car and a billionaire husband too busy to notice, this would have been just another vicious little secret in Mumbai's towered skyline. But secrets have a way of moving, of leaving digital fingerprints even the most careful lovers don't anticipate. And in a city where drivers are invisible until they're not, where security footage can make or break fortunes, it took only one misplaced glance into the wrong camera for Vikram Kapoor to understand that his wife hadn't just betrayed his marriage. In his mind, she'd committed a far worse crime. She'd betrayed the hierarchy that kept his world intact. He could tolerate many things. Being made to look like a fool by the man who opened his car door every morning was not one of them. Anaya was now living under a shadow darker than before. The spark in Rohan's eyes grew with every stolen moment, and it was no longer just desire. It was a quiet rebellion against the life they were both trapped in. The next morning, the apartment felt colder. Vikram's absence extended unexpectedly, an alleged business emergency in Dubai that no one would question. But Anaya knew something was brewing in the silence. She avoided her phone, her heart pounding each time it vibrated. Rohan's presence was a comforting shield, but it also reminded her of the inevitable storm. That night, the breaking point came. Vikram returned earlier than planned, his face a mask of fury beneath the polished exterior. He had discovered the truth in the blink of a security camera, a glance caught in the elevator where Anaya and Rohan had shared a fleeting moment. Rage turned into obsession. He was no longer the man who built empires with calculated steps, he was a man unraveling, cornered by betrayal and bruised pride. One evening, under the unforgiving glare of the penthouse lights, Vikram confronted them. Words were exchanged, harsh, cutting, irrevocable. Anaya realized too late that her freedom had been bought with a price far heavier than she imagined. In a moment fueled by jealousy and shattered ego, Vikram decided that the only way to reclaim control was through violence. The Mercedes, once a prison and a sanctuary, now witnessed a tragedy no one was prepared for. A gunshot shattered the silence, echoing through the luxury towers and spiraling down into Mumbai's restless streets. The perfect facade of the Kapoor marriage lay in ruins, broken by secrets, betrayal, and a love turned deadly. Anaya's story became a dark chapter whispered in corridors of power and gossip alike. A testament to how far a man could fall when possession turned to obsession, and how a wife's longing for freedom could ignite a deadly fire. Vikram Kapoor's empire was shaken not just by the scandal, but by the truth that clawed its way out from beneath the glittering surface. The murder of Rohan Desai, a man who had been invisible for so long, sent shockwaves through Mumbai's elite circles. The headline screamed betrayal, jealousy, and the tragic fall of a titan. Anaya, once the flawless wife of the tech mogul, was now a woman marked by grief and fear. Her every step was watched, her every word twisted into evidence. The police investigation peeled back layers of secrecy, revealing a marriage suffocating under control and an affair born of desperation. But beyond the legal battles and media frenzy, there was a deeper story. A woman breaking free from the chains of a gilded cage, and a man destroyed by the illusion of possession. In the quiet moments between court dates and whispered rumors, Anaya found herself alone with memories she wished she could erase. The stolen tea stall under the flyover, the rain-soaked walks, the stolen touches in a car that was both sanctuary and prison, all now ghosts that haunted her. Family and friends turned their backs, afraid to choose sides in a tale where love and violence collided. And as the trial began, the city waited, breath held, judgment ready, to see if justice would be served or if the Kapoor legacy would crumble forever. But the question lingered. Who was truly the victim in this story of power, betrayal, and deadly love? The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension and expectation. Mumbai watched as the final act in the Kapoor tragedy unfolded, a tale of love, betrayal, and murder that had gripped the city's elite and shaken its foundations. Anaya Kapoor took the stand, her voice steady but her eyes betraying the torment beneath. She spoke of a marriage that was never what it seemed, of a husband who demanded possession rather than partnership, and of a love that blossomed unexpectedly in the shadows. She did not excuse what had happened, but she told her truth, a truth of desperation, of seeking freedom, and of a fierce longing for dignity in a life that felt like a gilded prison. The prosecution painted Vikram as a man consumed by toxic jealousy, whose violent rage was the tragic culmination of a world where power and control were everything. The defense argued passion had turned fatal, a moment of madness born from betrayal and humiliation. Outside, the city buzzed with opinions and whispers. The verdict was more than just legal judgment. It was a reckoning with the illusions of perfection and the brutal consequences when those illusions shattered. When the jury delivered its decision, it marked an end and a beginning. Vikram Kapoor was found guilty of murder, his empire crumbling alongside his legacy. Anaya, though scarred and broken, was free from the life that had trapped her, free to rebuild on her terms. But the story lingered in the hearts of those who followed it, a dark reminder of how entrenched power can destroy, how love can both save and doom, and how behind every perfect life, there are unseen fractures waiting to break. As Mumbai moved on, the Kapoor saga became a cautionary tale whispered in the gleaming towers, a narrative of desire, deceit, and deadly consequences that would shape the city's collective memory for years to come.